goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, hello. Welcome to the program. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read an email and say hello to you at the same time, and that ain't gonna work. I'm Lynn Cullen. It is December 11th, last time I looked, and in fact, it's a Tuesday. My sister will not be joining us today. David DeAngelo will be stopping in. He of half of Two Political Junkies blog. So until then, it is you and moi. And I have, first of all, today, I need to start with an addendum to something I was ranting about yesterday, and that has to do with this new curriculum thing where I told you this was in the British newspaper, The Telegraph, and it said that by the year 2014, most public schools in the United States will agree to limit the amount of fiction that children read to only 30% of all of their reading material, 70% to be nonfiction. And the headline on the story was, "Catcher in the Rye dropped from U.S. school curriculum." In favor of informational texts. Well, the old English major in me, that was my first major, went kaplooey when I saw that. And then I got confused because it talked about that this was something approved by the Common Core state standards. I thought, what the hell is that? And then I saw that it was being funded largely by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I got confused about that because I think of the Gates Foundation as generally a very progressive and clearly thought out where it places its money and what it supports. And somehow none of this was ringing true. And the story went on to say that suggested nonfiction texts include recommended levels of insulation. by a pamphlet by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? You mean to say kids are not going to be reading Moby Dick, but they will be reading recommended levels of insulation. And then it went on to say that this was a result of the fact that we want children to be prepared to go into the workplace, and that, they don't need Shakespeare in the workplace or something like that. So this was from the Telegraph, a UK newspaper. I said that I'll look forward to taking this up with my sister, Susan, who had been a president of a school board and is pretty well versed in curricula things, how this kind of thing works. And Susan isn't here today, but I had called her last night and asked her about this, and she was stunned. She said, She said, what is... She said, I've never heard of the Common Core state standards. This makes no sense. She said, this story makes no sense because the federal government, it says 46 of 50 states are going to have these standards. And as Susan said, and I sort of thought it was true too, that the federal government, other than No Child Left Behind, the federal government doesn't set curriculum. That is left to the states, and the states often leave a large part of it to districts as well. Anyway, so it occurred to us that maybe we should look up, Google, Common Core state standards, which we did. And this is a mea culpa on my part. This is the danger, I know it well, of running with a story that you get on the internet from a seemingly reliable source. The Telegraph is not a total rag, as far as I knew, no. But I'll tell you what, having now done a modicum of due diligence, I want to do an Emily Latella and essentially say, never mind. The piece in the Telegraph plays very loose with the facts. The piece in the Telegraph also engages in pretty outrageous suppositions, and that are nowhere in this core thing does it say Catcher in the Rye should be dropped or To Kill a Mockingbird should be dropped. Both things that are sort of suggested in this, and that instead we'll read about insulation levels. That's not what it is. So the reason Susan had never heard of the Common Core state standards is this is a group that was just formed 2 years ago, and that is, she's been out of the school board biz for much longer than that. And what it is it's a group made up of governors of states and public education professionals, and they got together in an effort to create a kind of, like a roadmap. Here is what we need to be teaching our students if they are to be competitive in the global economy. And if you go to, go ahead, go yourselves now to the Common Core state standards, just Google it. And it's got a big website and explains what their core values are and what they're about. There's no way they enforce these standards. And it's quite clear that what this is about is, and they also don't have reading lists, really. So, obviously, the insulation thing, maybe there was a suggested things of what might constitute nonfiction in whatever report was put out that the Telegraph glommed onto. It might have said, for instance, if in science class students are studying whatever, some kind of, how insulation can prevent heat from escaping, and thus it's ecologically friendly, it's this and that, and blah, 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 blah. The idea is that, well, I'll let them say it because they go into it, and this is from their website. With the Common Core standards, English teachers, of course, will teach their students literature as well as literary nonfiction. However, because college and career readiness overwhelmingly focuses on complex texts outside of literature, these standards also ensure that students are being prepared to read, write, and research across the curriculum, including in history and science. So what they're saying is students not only have to know their Shakespeare, but because almost all jobs now require a great deal of reading and comprehension of non-literary English, they've got to know how to process it, and they have to know how to even write it, because odds are that's what in most jobs that they will be asked to do. So this is part of trying to get all teachers, English teachers and others, to focus on reading and writing to build knowledge. All kinds of reading, all kinds of writing. And they specifically say that the standards that they've come up with require certain critical content for all students, and they include in critical content classic myths and stories from around the world, America's founding documents, foundational American literature, and Shakespeare, minimally. And then they say the remaining crucial decisions about what content should be taught are left to state and local determination. Our standards require that students systematically acquire knowledge in literature and other disciplines through reading, writing, speaking, and listening. In other words, this Telegraph piece was extraordinarily misleading. It was all about provocation. It did not in any way pass any journalistic standard. And as I read what these standards are, I have very, very little reason to quibble about them. And nowhere does it say 70-30, this, that. I don't know where the hell the Telegraph got that. So I'm sorry. And this is something I probably have done before, but I shouldn't be passing on this crap before I do some study of it myself. And I'm constantly faulting talk radio and for doing just that, and I'm afraid I did that yesterday. So, to my mind, I never would have brought this up. If I had brought up the story at all, it would have been as an example of how badly we are served by media now. Not only the Telegraph, but Lynn Cullen. It was a great case in point all the way around. So, that's my opening mea culpa. I had this thought today because on the front page of the New York Times, there's a picture of all these Afghan soldiers, the Afghan National Army in Baghlan province. And as you know, we're pulling out. And as you know, increasingly, we are giving this Afghan army the front. Go ahead, you do it. Maybe we'll follow and do some backup, but we're done leading this, okay? Time for you guys to take over. And the whole article is about how just woefully incapable of doing anything this Afghan National Army is, despite the fact that, of course, we've been over there supposedly training them for, 12 years now? Almost? Yeah, almost. And equipping them and dying for them and dying with them. And then I was looking at these Afghan guys in their camo, and I thought, wait a minute. All of a sudden, I remembered that prior to us going into Afghanistan, a few people brought up some history. And I recall it well. The history was, don't mess with the Afghanis. I don't care if you're big bad Soviet Union. Don't mess with them. They'll humiliate you. Even if they don't have tanks, even if they don't have all the fancy gizmos, they will humiliate you. Which they did, right? Even if you are the British Empire, you bestride the globe like a colossus. The Brits went into Afghanistan and left decimated at the height of their power. So here's what I don't get. How the Afghanis, we were told, were about the fiercest warriors there are. No one beats them. Well, then, why would they be such a hapless army? Is it because we have put them in camo? I mean, they look like U.S. soldiers, but they don't, you know? Is it because we have put on them our structures, our way of doing things, when left to their own devices, they probably could... I'm so confused about it. How did the fiercest warriors on the planet that have taken down the biggest empires, perennial Davids to umpteen Goliaths, and now, all of a sudden, after we've trained them and equipped them for over a decade, they're this hapless band of incompetence? What? You understand my confusion. Are the only fierce Afghani fighters on the other side of this battle? And somehow we inherited the ones that otherwise would have been told to just go tend your sheep. We'll take care of the military stuff. I do not get it. Oh. And speaking of Afghanistan, I would be much remiss if I did not note the death of a special ops soldier from Monroeville who got his name in the New York Times today, and I'm sorry that he did. This is Nicholas Check. He was with the Naval Special Warfare Unit. He was killed, shot through the head, the only casualty on our side in this rescue effort, successful rescue effort of an American doctor who had been captured by the Taliban. And in the rescue mission, Nicholas Check, 28 years old, Norwin High School grad, lost his life. And it says here he was the 2,000th 2,146th American. Soldier. We got as many contractors over there as soldiers, so God knows, really, if these numbers never deal with the contractors over there who die too. But 2,146 with Nicholas Check now, one of the dead. As we continue our pullout and our hand over, bless you, hand over to the hapless Afghan National Army. But I haven't read the names of those who have died for some time, and you know why? It's a happy why. We haven't been dying over there like we had. Because the pullout is, in fact, happening. The turnover to the Afghanis is happening, and fewer Americans are being placed in harm's way in Afghanistan. That's the good news. So, since last I read you the names, these are the Americans who have died, with Nicholas Check of Monroeville being the most recent. And it's a wonderfully short list. Although tell that to the families of Darren Lind, age 41, Sergeant First Class Army, Sydney, Montana. Tyler Orgard, 20, Specialist Army, Bismarck, North Dakota. Anthony Denier, 26, Lance Corporal Marines, Mechanicsville, New York. And Kevin Ebert, 32, Petty Officer, First Class Navy, Arcata, California, who was also with the Naval Special Warfare Unit. So that's the good news. Fewer names. Fewer of our guys dying. But I also read today that this report that has been years in the making by our intelligence community, the part of it that looks way ahead, tries to see where we're all going to be in 25 years. They made a list of what they thought might be failed states. I mean, places that are just going to go kaplooey between now and 2035. And one of them, not surprisingly, was Afghanistan. And another, Pakistan. That report also said that by 2035, the United States would not be the number one economic power in the world. It would be number two. So that's happening. That's pretty quickly. 35 is not that far away. We will be number two to China. And they said, however, we'll still be, pretty dang important in every way. And that what has to happen for things to work out is that China and us need to get closer. We don't want a situation where we're, 1 and 2 are button heads. We've been there before, God knows. And they said the odds of that happening without a crisis bringing us together is pretty minimal. And a crisis, they say, would be something to the effect of Pakistan and India threatening to go nuclear with each other. And that it might take something at that level to get China and the United States to work together, actively work together, in the way that the U.S. generally has had to do pretty much by itself before. The report, if you really want to get sobered up, also says things like it brings up all kinds of scary stuff about more terrorism and cyber terror, and also biological and pandemics. And looks like as you look into the future, it's a little scary. However, in the good news department, the middle class, maybe not of the United States, but the middle class in other countries will have grown larger than ever before, and that more people in the world will be living in a comfortable way, will be finding that they have disposable income, and I guess that's the good news. Others, not so lucky, will find themselves in countries that are desperate for water. And so I think you will see a lot of war. Where war used to be over oil, you're going to see water war, which I think has been obviously predicted many times before, too. Okay, so that's that. I want to just do one more little thing before I take my break, and we'll get David DeAngelo in to do some more political talk. And that is, there's a bestseller in Russia right now that is written by a Russian political analyst who has, for the last 20 years, lived in the United States. And part of what he's done for the Kremlin and anybody else who wants to listen to him is try to explain America to the Russians. You know, here's who you're dealing with here. You have to comprehend them a little bit better. It turns out the Russians are as clueless about knowing who they're dealing with and having an appreciation for cultural differences and that kind of thing. They're as clueless as we are. And I suspect that comes from the arrogance of having been, you know, a top dog who didn't have to get to know anybody. Everybody else had to get to know them. And I think, you know, we're traditionally clueless too as a country, and so this guy has written a book called America, What a Life, and it is popular. He's done it for the Russian audience to explain America to them. I guess he's thrown up his hands for trying to explain it to the Kremlin guys. And this book is flying off the shelves. Russians are just absolutely dumbstruck about us and how we live. And it's because they don't comprehend it. One of the big things they don't comprehend is something as simple as teenage babysitters. They say that in Russia, no child would ever be placed in the care of a teenager. He says you would be as likely to place your child with a pack of wolves than you would with a earnest teenage girl from next door. Because in the Russian culture, you only turn your child over to the generation above you, to older people who have already raised a child, know how to care for a child. So to Russians, this idea that Americans walk out the door and leave their children with a teenager is just unthinkable, is bizarre. Here are some of the other just quick little things that he's warned Russians about Americans, and which Russians would find they would be, what's our word, gobsmacked. He warns them about the American practice of interrogating complete strangers about the details of their pregnancies. You would no more go up to a woman who's pregnant, who you didn't know, and say, "Oh, and how long, when's your due date? And what are you having? And blah, blah, blah." You would never do it. Russians are freaked that Americans leave their curtains open, especially at night. Now, some Americans close their curtains at night, but an awful lot don't. And I suppose that would come from Russians knowing they're being watched and needing some privacy, whatever. He tells them that in general, Americans don't lie. They're straightforward. That's how I think that's, I know that Americans lie. You know Americans lie. But I guess we lie a lot less than most cultures. And most cultures lie more for all kinds of reasons, but often it's for etiquette. It's for, you simply you don't say what's on your mind. But that is, of course, exactly what Americans do. And I'm seeing if there's anything else. He also says that Americans can't hold their liquor. Well, I guess next to a Russian you can't, because those Russians do that vodka. He says the only ones who can hold their liquor, he says, and he's impressed by, are certain young women. Like Jess, right? Yeah. A lot of young women can put it away. He apparently writes a lot about privacy. And I find this incomprehensible. It says here that privacy is a word that does not exist in the Russian language. I mean, it's so much a part and parcel of who we think we are, the right to privacy. Although, as we've all pretty much acknowledged, give it up. There isn't any anymore. And he says that Americans have a sense of their own space. And he said you have to stand at least 4 feet away from an American that you're talking to go closer than 4 feet. I think is that about right? To go closer than 4 feet is to be aggressive and to be in your face and that is so not true of so many other nations. He says Americans don't like you poking them, touching them. He said Americans would become unconscious in the kind of lines that form in Russia for all kinds of things. So Russians are used to being sort of tightly stuck together. The sense that we have of space around us is totally foreign to them. One more thing. He says, though Americans are slovenly in their outward appearance, it is completely unacceptable, he says, to show up at work in the same outfit 2 days in a row. And that's true. But he says it's so odd because they wear ripped, stained T-shirts out to restaurants, and yet it would be considered unbelievable if somebody wore the same thing 2 days in a row to work. He says they are amazingly loud in everyday activities, but muted in their expressions of grief. Interesting. And then one other person who was quoted in the article says that they lived in the United States for a long time, and even after he got used to the loud talking and the fast eating, he said mostly he just found Americans boring. Well, hey, up yours. That's all we got to say to you. Up yours. You cross that 4-foot line, and you'll see what you're getting. That's our, red line? Our red line. 4 feet, you Ruskies. Okay, I'm almost done. Just want to get in. Michael writes, is this the world that we created? What did we do it for? Is this the world we devastated? right to the core of it is, if there's a God in the sky looking down, what must he think of what we've done to the world that he created? I think that was in response to what I was saying we're heading into in 2035. That's my guess, that sobering report. Okay, I'm going to get a break in here. We'll come back, and David DeAngelo of Two Political Junkies coming in to, I guess, since he's a political junkie, to talk about politics.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Discover the most beautiful you with smoother, brighter, and healthier skin. Sewickley Med Spa is now offering special holiday skincare packages for all skin types, including anti-aging, anti-blemish, and sun damage treatments. Not sure what to buy that special someone? Purchase a $100 gift certificate and receive an extra $10 free. Log on to SewickleyMedSpa.com for details. Sewickley Med Spa is conveniently located in downtown Sewickley at 435 Broad Street. Happy holidays from Sewickley Med Spa.
Happy holidays from Pittsburgh City Paper.
I didn't know about chronic obstructive pulmonary disease until I took the wheel and lent my support to Drive for COPD. Help Americans take action against this leading cause of death by logging on to driveforcopd.org to learn more. I'm Nancy Cartwright, the voice of Bart Simpson, and I drive for COPD.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
All right, welcome back. And David DeAngelo, Two Political Junkies, has promoted, is here. Jess was just talking about Christmas music, and you were saying as a musician, what, you know every...
Yeah, I just as I went to music school and got to have a degree, and so part of the process is learning ear training. And like in the, was it The Sound of Music, when the Julie Andrews teaches all the kids to sing. Yeah, do, re, di, di. Well, that's solfege. It's something called solfege, and it's a way to memorize the relationship between tones. And so when you hear Christmas music all the time, I can't help but solfege in my head all the Christmas carols. You know, sol, fa, mi, re, do, mi, fa, mi, re, do, ti, do. Sol, do, re, do, ti, la, re, mi, re, do, ti, sol, mi, fa, mi, re, do, la, sol, la, re, ti, do.
Oh, how cool. Does it drive you crazy?
Yeah, it drives me crazy. Drives me crazy, drives my wife crazy. You know, I mean, I keep it inside, but and as part of my trumpet playing, I try to do that and play every Christmas carol in every key, just so that I'm not, you know, just to try to improve the ear. But still, it's, you know, the music is, as they say, ubiquitous.
It is ubiquitous. I know it all too, because I was always the accompanist for the school choir and the school, you know, that orchestra. I was always on the piano. So, man, bless you. So I know. Go ahead, name me a carol.
God rest ye merry gentlemen.
Okay, now you do. God rest. You do the soul singing.
Do sol sol fa me re do te do.
Too fast. God rest ye merry gentlemen. Be dismay. We had a lousy month, but what else can I say?
Sol le fa sol le to de sol fa me do re me fa sol le sol sol fa me re do sol me fa sol le te do sol fa me re mi. I ended on a Picardy third, as they say. It's a major third and a minor.
That seemed odd.
Yeah, well.
Okay, you're quick.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, speaking of things Christmassy, isn't that a nice segue?
Yes, very nice segue.
has there been a creche controversy yet this year?
No, I
don't think so.
Well, the only controversy I saw was really a non-controversy because the Elwood City creche has now been moved to a place that's now going to be a restaurant, but it had been a church, but it's still private property, which is fine, That's
right. That's legal. That's fine.
And so,
and
the funny thing is what hits on the news is it's the controversial, But I mean, if you're following in the news, months ago it was decided that it wasn't going to be on public property, and that it was going to be at this restaurant. And they're renovating the church, which has, I guess the technical term is that it had been
Oh gosh, what do they do? They what?
I don't know. I'm
so
thinking
they do an exorcism.
Or I don't know if that's exactly the term. Yeah, I can remember years ago when the Church Brew Works was opened up, which is on that there was a big outcry from local because this church was being used to make beer and it was a restaurant.
Like there's huge vats of beer where the altar was. I know.
And you go, okay. So I guess it's okay now for a church to be turned into a restaurant if there's going to be a creche there. But I mean, if it's private property, that's exactly where it should be. I wouldn't want to live in a country where the state can go, oh, private property people, you can't put a creche there because whatever reason. But I don't know if there's anything actually happening locally. As far as a creche is
okay, so you had wanted to. I said, "Is there anything that's of interest to you?" And the thing. What?
Phone call.
All right, phone call. Hello there.
Good morning.
Yeah, there is. I don't know. It's not local. This is Michael from Palm Springs.
Hi, Michael.
Palm Springs, Florida.
Isn't Bill O'Reilly having a big fight with the governor of Vermont over not putting up a Christmas tree? It's a holiday tree or season tree or something like that?
Well, you listen, far be it from me to listen to Bill O'Reilly, but I do know that he's, as usual, ramping up the so-called war on Christmas crap. And if he's, there's always something you can focus on. And I don't know. But, yes, it sounds like something O'Reilly would be doing.
The Tribune Review editorial board, my good friends over there, tried to gin up the war on Christmas a couple days ago. They had an editorial blurb about how Governor Corbett had resurrected a tradition. And I like the verb resurrected. Yeah. Although it should be at Easter time.
Although that should be more of an Easter phrase.
Yeah, it must be an Easter thing. But whatever. Resurrected a tradition of having, the Christmas tree lighting ceremony on the steps. And when you read it and you think, okay, in light of this whole war on Christmas thing, I guess the tradition was that there hadn't been any sort of Christmas tree. But when you look at the history, in the 80s, someone decided to move it indoors. So there was a Christmas tree lighting indoors. Mm-hmm. And it's called a Christmas tree. And they made a point of, well, we're really glad we're calling it a Christmas tree. Ha ha, snark, snark. But the tradition was that it had been, the tradition that was resurrected was that it was outside, but not that there was no tree in the intervening 20 years. So it's one of those things where, again, my friends on the Tribune Review editorial board are leaving out some very important stuff in order to make a stupid political point.
Well, didn't the president just light the national Christmas
National Christmas tree. He called it the Christmas tree.
The Christmas tree.
But we all know he's an atheist socialist from Kenya, so,
from Kenya, yes. Yep, one of those.
It's a lie. He's lying. So.
But, okay. So that's interesting.
And, anybody can call it a Christmas tree. I look at it, and I know exactly what it is. It's a Hanukkah shrub.
This, for 30 years, when this subject comes up, I want to scream. I just want to scream.
And I was in Pittsburgh, living in Pittsburgh, when the Church Brew Works opened, which is a fantastic place, as I recall it. And I had no problems whatsoever because there is a long, long history of European monasteries manufacturing beer. The Trappists are famous for their beers.
Oh yeah, and certainly if you look back in history,
that's how they funded.
Yeah, and during Lent, they were fasting in a sense by not eating anything. But the recipes for beer at the time were very close to recipes for bread.
But they were able to drink.
Yeah, so they were drinking, and it was called liquid bread, and it was because it's yeast and barley and water, and you just kind of let it cook for a while, and so I mean, you go all the way back, and so there are monasteries. There are certainly monasteries that are making wine and stuff. I don't know. I mean,
it was a monk who invented champagne.
A monk that invented champagne.
And
it's
his name was Dom Perignon.
Oh, really? Dom Perignon?
Yeah. I think he was a monk.
Okay,
he was a monk.
I think the Capuchins were the guys who invented the cappuccino. Although that's not alcohol.
Guys.
That's not.
This sounds like a lot of. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye.
So much for the fun. Let's move on with the politics.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, maybe not. Here, it just made me think. When you said champagne, I heard the funniest story the other day. At least I thought it was funny. So. This has to do with a group here, I won't name names, in Pittsburgh. And the director of this, the person who ran this organization, is an Orthodox Jewish woman. And she had reached a certain anniversary of her tenure, and the staff wanted to throw her a party, and it was decided they would get a bottle of champagne.
Okay.
And somebody said, well, you have to get kosher champagne. And they said, kosher champagne? Where the heck do you get kosher champagne? And they said, you know that store on Murray Avenue? Pinskers?
Okay.
Pinskers. You ever heard of it?
Yeah, yeah.
Pinskers Judaica. And that means all things Jewish, and they, in fact, do have kosher wine that they can sell there. They have wine, champagne, all that stuff. So one of them was dispatched to go over to Pinskers and get a bottle of kosher champagne, which he did. He went, he looked, he saw, he pulled it up, went to the counter, put it down, and the man behind the counter said, "What shul?" Do you even know what that means?
I think so.
Okay. Shul, S-H-U-L. It's a Yiddish word for synagogue.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So the guy behind the counter says, "What shul?" And the poor soul, just trying to do a good deed in the right way, said, he did not. He thought he understood. He said, "I'm not. I don't have no shul, no shul." And the guy behind the counter grabs the thing and pulls it back. Says, "I can't sell it to you."
Oh, really?
And the guy said, I'm not Jewish. I can't sell it to you. And he said, "What? You can't sell it to me because I'm not Jewish?" That is true. Why? Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. Here's the thing. The only reason this shop on Murray Avenue can carry and sell booze
It would be to other...
is to use it. It is to be used only for sacramental purposes.
Sacramental champagne?
Sacramental champagne. So the poor guy who'd been dispatched said, "Oh, well, but it's for a Jew." It's for a Jew. We're just trying to do the right thing here. It's for a Jew. And he named the name of this. And the guy behind the counter says, "Oh, meh. Here, you take the champagne, I'll put it in her name." And thus the Commonwealth's Liquor Control Board was gotten around, and it
boggles the mind.
It boggles the mind. What a ridiculous, God almighty.
Speaking of champagne, I can, of course, solfege Auld Lang Syne for New Year's Eve.
Let's do it.
Sol, do, ti, do, mi, re, do, mi, sol, la, sol, mi, di, do, re, mi, re, do, la, sol, do. Thank you. So if I have music paper, I could write it out in any key you wanted, any of the 12 keys.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
This is an affliction you
Yes,
have.
yes. It was worse. It was worse when I was in school because the music just doesn't stop playing.
Oh,
and yeah, it's.
Do you know what's funny is when you learn a skill like that, I have somewhat of a similar affliction, or used to. It's long gone. But when I learned to type.
Oh, okay.
I would sometimes, while I was reading something, my fingers are, I'm a fiction. I'm going like this, and it doesn't matter because I got so fast. I was so fast that I loved doing it.
Oh, okay.
I loved being able to know that my fingers would know where to go immediately upon seeing a letter. That it wasn't even thought anymore. It's muscle memory, right?
I mean, as I was singing, I was doing trumpet fingerings in this hand.
That's right.
And I've known saxophonists that will, as they're going through scales, will be playing on their leg. That the fingers here, and just
It's true. It's true. You do. Oh God.
And we're
what a
strange
piece of work
lot.
are we? Yeah.
Yes. How Hamlet of you.
Mm-hmm. So wait a minute. Did we ever talk about what we were?
No, we haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, get to it. Go ahead.
Okay.
The subject that you find interesting of late.
Well, I've been tracking the story of the Ten Commandments monument in Connellsville. There's also one in Newcastle. There's probably a couple of others popped up here and there. And there's an organization called the Freedom From Religion organization up in Wisconsin.
Hey, my good friend, Annie. God, why am I forgetting?
Get Your Gun. I think her last name is Get Your Gun. Annie
No,
Get Your Gun.
it's not.
And
Get Your Gun. Gaylor. Yo, stop it.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And
I knew them well when I lived in Madison.
Oh, okay. Okay,
It was a mother and daughter.
So there was a couple of there's a woman and her daughter, I believe, in Connellsville discovered a monument. I guess it's outside. It's granite.
What do you mean they discovered a monument in Connellsville? If it's outside, it's
been there
hardly,
since 1957, I think.
What, hiding behind a shrub?
No, it's out in plain sight.
So what do you mean discovered it?
Well, she discovered it when she went to school, the daughter.
All right.
But it had been there for a while, and it's the Ten Commandments. And so there's
on school property.
On school property, and it's there's a long process. The same thing has happened in Connellsville. There's a process of trying to get it removed because it's on school property. And initially, I think one or the other towns was going, well, we could go to court with this, but we're going to lose. So it'll be expensive. Let's just move the monument. And of course, there's a Facebook page of Saving the Ten Commandments, and so I've been following the.
As if they'll disappear if you move the dang thing.
Well,
all right.
The interesting part of the story. The interesting part of the story is that if you look into it, it was donated by an organization called the something of Eagles, the Legion of Eagles, I think. And you kind of dig into the thing, and they were looking to do this because there was a judge up in, I think, Minnesota someplace, around the mid-'50s, trying to impart good moral teachings on our nation's youth because there was a lot of juvenile delinquency and stuff. And so he wanted to have these monuments posted everywhere. The guy who was doing the PR for the Yul Brynner Charlton Heston movie, The Ten Commandments, which was out about the same time, read about the story.
Ah, yes.
And these two things kind of overlapped, and so you actually had their news reports of stars of the movie going to the unveiling of these things in order to promote the movie. And so 1956, 57. So the thing has been up for that long.
These things are all over the place. There are millions of them.
50,000, I think, is the last estimate.
Okay.
Lots, and they were donated, and so the my opinion is that they're unconstitutional because I'm not a lawyer or anything, but they're unconstitutional because the Supreme Court said in 1980 that posting the Ten Commandments at a high school or a public school is necessarily promoting religion.
Yes.
So it is unconstitutional, and so all the fight is just going to be wasting a lot of money. The most recent brief, there was a brief in favor of a motion to have the case dismissed. Was they're looking to they're looking to prove that the Ten Commandments are not a religious symbol, but a secular message. I don't understand it either. But the scary thing, it tucked in at the bottom of the brief, is that if it's removed, then that might be seen as an act of hostility to religion. So therefore, that in itself is unconstitutional because the thing has been there for 50 years.
Oh, my God. It sounds like we need Solomon here.
Yes.
So what?
And maybe a baby to cut.
Yeah. So what? I mean, so is that where it stands now?
I think that's where it stands.
No matter what you do, you're either promoting religion or you're being hostile to religion. Yeah, and you shouldn't do either.
My reading of the filing is that they're depending on a couple of court cases that came through number of years ago, and there were two separate court cases about posting the Ten Commandments at a county courthouse. Right. One was in Kentucky, one was in Texas. And the Supreme Court voted that the one in Kentucky was unconstitutional, but the one in Texas was okay. And Stephen Breyer had he wrote a concurring opinion for the monument in Texas, describing the difference between the two cases. And you have to take into account, he wrote, the context, and like the one in Texas, it was a part of a set of monuments that weren't necessarily done for religious purposes. The one in Kentucky was obviously just a standalone, thou shalt believe in God kind of thing. So that one was unconstitutional. The one in Texas was okay. And it looks like, from my reading, the attorneys for Connellsville are trying to kind of skew the thing to make it look more like the one in Texas and less like the one in Kentucky.
Forgive me, but do you believe all the energy and that goes into something that, on one level, to me, just strikes me as this whole thing is idiotic?
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, I'll take the call. We'll take a call, but I also got to get a break in here. Hello, caller. Hi.
Hey, guys, it's PJ from Greensburg.
Hey, PJ.
Hi, PJ.
You kind of beat me to the punch there, and I was just going to say, if they spent more time putting forth the actual action of what the Ten Commandments say and less time fighting on where they should be,
I know,
we would be in a lot better off place. I got a quote for you.
Okay.
Secular schools can never be tolerated because such a school has no religious instruction, and in a general moral instruction without a religious foundation is built on error.
Who said that?
Consequently, all character training and religion must be derived from faith. We need believing people.
Who said that?
You think the Ten Commandments people would agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, here's where I go off the deep end. That's Adolf Hitler.
Oh, jeez.
So I've been keeping that quote in my pocket for people that get into the Ten Commandments must be on school grounds argument.
Wow.
The other one that drives me crazy is it's tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there are lots of traditions that are unpalatable.
Well, whatever. It flies in the face of what our Constitution says, and one of the things they should be learning in school is our foundational documents and understanding what they mean and why they're there. And if you want to put up something on school property, how about a thing with the Bill of Rights on it?
Yeah, the Constitution, absolutely.
That would be constitutional, and it would be educational, and it would be whatever.
Good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Well, and the code is why there should be religion in schools, but the code is Christianity.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the
anything it's the small end of the wedge.
So yeah, okay, guys, happy Hanukkah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, PJ. We got to get a break in.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen live after this.
Winter has arrived and it's cold outside, so get to Little's for all your UGG needs. Little's has Uggs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. And don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more. All available at Little's Shoes. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on your favorite local restaurants, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 60% on tickets to the Nutcracker. Bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's exclusive e-commerce mall. Bergbargains.com.
Now, it's back to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay. Yeah, it is Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah. I haven't said that to anybody. I can't believe everything just sort of... Hanukkah's sort of early this year, and I just love this. Jess gave me this card. I love this so much. Oi to the world.
Yeah, when I saw it, it was behind the...
you thought maybe there was a J missing?
Yeah, there was a J missing, yeah.
No, this is a Hanukkah card. Oi to the world.
Oh, it's blue and white. How is the you said it's early this year. How is the date determined?
The Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that gets things all... things change. Don't ask me. I get mixed up trying to explain it. But it's a lunar calendar.
Lunar calendar. The Islamic calendar is also a lunar calendar.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Ramadan is 11 days early every year.
Right, because Ramadan is constantly happening at different times. Same thing. This is what drives me crazy, because the Jews and the Muslims have so many things in common. It's unbelievable. Our burial practices, our eating, prescriptions, all those kinds of things. We're so similar. We're so similar.
Yeah.
Drives you nuts. But let's not look at the things that we share. Let's look at the few things we don't agree about. Jeez. People drive me nuts.
The interesting thing is, you read Christopher Hitchens and on the Ten Commandments, and he points out, what is actually commanded against in the Ten Commandments and what is allowed in other places in the Bible. Because, adultery, obviously commanded against. Slavery, it's okay.
Fine,
it's okay. I mean, I think I blogged on this a couple of weeks ago in Paul's letter to the, I don't think it's Corinthians, one of Paul's letters. There are instructions against, of course, sexual immorality, but there are instructions on how slave owners should be treating slaves. And on the one hand, it's like, okay, yeah, treat them nicely and everything. But slavery is okay, but, two guys getting married, that's somehow really going to cause the disruption of civilization. And
in fact, the slave holders and pro-slavery people use the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
They had the Bible on their side.
Yeah. Yeah,
right? So much for that. So having the Bible on your side in regard to, like, gay rights, it's not necessarily, that's not a be-all and end-all. Because the Bible itself doesn't quite pass muster in our, as we've progressed, as we have civilized ourselves. Caller, go ahead.
And one other thing that's in the Bible, too, was when Lot, after his wife died, was forced to have sex with his own daughters to keep the family line alive.
What?
That is the most single disgusting thing in that book.
God told him he had to have sex with his
fornicate his own daughters.
Wasn't there some section? I think it's Lot.
I better read this book sometime, huh?
There's a story, and I think it's Lot, where a couple of visitors have come to town, and they are sheltered in his house, and a crowd shows up from outside to attack and kill the two visitors. And Lot or someone has said, the visitors should remain safe in the house, but I have these two daughters who have not known men, so you can have them in order to keep the visitors safe. I mean, there's a lot of really freaky stuff in there.
Well,
it is extremely creepy, and that's why I just have real daddy issues with God. I do.
So you can mix your reference. You have an Oedipal complex with the Almighty.
Yeah.
With the Almighty, yes, and I'm going to rip my eyes out any moment now. Joe Costa. Okay.
Goodbye,
thank you.
heathen.
I just had to get that one out because a lot of people don't know that.
Oh no, there's so many things. There's so many things in the Bible. You think, and I know I brought one up to my rabbi the other day. It made me a few months ago. And I said, how can you possibly defend such a thing? How do you explain that? And he said, metaphor. And I thought, oh, that's slippery. You can get away from everything with metaphor.
Yeah.
But then how do the people who say they believe it literally, how the hell do they deal with something like Lot?
I don't know. I just don't know. It's a lot of mental gymnastics to get around the logical inconsistencies. There are two separate and conflicting stories of creation in the Book of Genesis, one chapter apart.
There was okay.
You have to be very agile mentally to be able to hold those two very separate ideas. I do want to say I was invited to talk on the Ten Commandments by the Center of Inquiry.
Oh, that's right.
And it's Thursday night at 7:00, conflicting with Bill Peduto's special announcement.
Oh yeah! Oh
and
God,
so,
we're all waiting with bated breath.
Well, I asked him. I emailed him, and I asked him very nicely if he could rearrange the day. If he can move it, or just so that some of my friends can actually go to see. And he said, "Well, I can maybe ask the band to play a little longer." So he won't have my vote because he didn't rearrange his party to suit me.
Okay.
Because
that's. Yeah, you throw your weight around in whatever way you can.
Yes, my non-existent political weight.
Whatever way you can. PJ, I don't know if you want to meet, but I'll do this. PJ, who brought up the Hitler quote, says, I apologize for playing the Hitler card, but it's not to say that they are Nazis, people who believe so fervently about things like the Ten Commandments. But it's a great example of faith without reason and the intolerance and tyranny of the majority, twisted tradition, if it goes unquestioned. It's true. It's true. Oh.
Well, the Terry Jones, who's one of the Monty Python guys, he goes a little far, I have to admit, but he's got a great book on the Crusades, where he starts the book. The preface is quoting, I think, a Syrian poet, 9th century Syrian poet, said you can separate people into two groups in this world: people with brains and no religion, and people with religion and no brains. And so I think that's a little harsh. But on the other hand, if one is using just faith to prop up what they think should be statements of fact, logic and evidence, but the only evidence that they're using, the only support for that is their faith, then you get into really harsh problems of, how you defend those things and how an idea is supported and how an idea is defended becomes much more dangerous than the idea itself. Right. Because if you're holding an idea because you think that God commands you to believe in a thing, then the people who are disagreeing with you are obviously disagreeing with God. And so, how do you compromise with the devil? How do you compromise with the Antichrist? How do you? So that's when books get thrown onto piles and set on fire, and
people are killed,
and strung up and stuff because God commands it, because God commanded Abraham and Isaac. How awful a story is that?
That is the worst. That's the worst. Oh, you want me to kill my kid? Okay. Blind faith. I don't know.
That's a bad thing.
I just beyond belief. Anyway, enough. Have we offended every religious person?
Basta, as my Italian.
Basta. Enough. The Jewish would say dayenu.
Okay.
That's the same thing. Enough. Basta, dayenu.
I'm still working on my Italian face gestures. Like someone says something.
Oh yeah.
Or hand gestures. Like, why are you breaking my,
Oh, Italians are so funny. Somebody told me the other day the difference between Jews and Italians is very minimal on, emotion, facial expression, all that kind of stuff. But there are definite differences.
Long time ago, I knew a woman who was trying to, she's trying to kind of guilt me into something, and she told me a story. She was raised by a Jewish mother. I said, raised by an Italian mother. Yeah, right. This stuff it's like I'm standing behind lead and you've got the kryptonite.
Yeah,
so
right.
It just doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Oi to the world. Tomorrow, Chris Pata joins us, and you have a great day. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.